call the Board of Finance to order at 5:34. And the first item on the agenda is the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? President Paul? And any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Is there anyone who would like to speak to public forum? Sharon Busherwood. Sharon, I have enabled you to speak.
Thank you so much. When you get to item, I don't know what the item number is, but it has to do with the side path for Queen City Park. I'm not sure I'm orienting myself, and I didn't see a map that went with that. And I know it talked about the businesses, the industrial businesses making that request also. So I just wanted to make sure I knew where this was. If there was a map attached, I missed it, so my apologies, but that's my only request. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other members of the public. I am going to go ahead and close the public forum and move on to item number 3, the consent agenda. Those of you who are regular members or attendees of Board of Finance, which is pretty much everyone in this room, will notice that we are utilizing the consent agenda a little more. Item 3.02 is a grant, and it is an amendment to a grant, but since it was only an amendment for $12,000, we put that on consent. Also, every year, we accept what Vtrans has put forward for mileage reimbursement. And since that is not something over which we have control, I also put that on the consent agenda. So those are the other 2 items in addition to our meeting minutes. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
I would make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Thank you, Councilor McGee. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. President Paul, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. And the mayor has arrived just in time for item number 4, communication. And we have Director Olaswari here to talk about it. If you want to kick us off, Cara.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. This is a communication, as you can see from my memo, related to a resolution passed during our budget resolution for this fiscal year. It involves the dispersal of $1 million from our ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act funds. I outlined the process we went through. I see Director Pine is also in the room. So Director Pine was deeply involved. So if he wants to jump in, he may. We made the application as low barrier as possible. We had many applicants. We convened a review committee with members from REIB, CEDO, my department, City Council, as well as the Howard Center, who was not an applicant. We met several times at the end of last year and several times at the beginning of this year. And you'll see on the second page of the memo are the award amounts and the awardees listed in alphabetical order. And this is something we're very pleased about. It was a very robust process with lots of discussion. We feel the funds are well distributed to a variety of nonprofits serving different sectors in our city. I'm here to take any questions if you like. Otherwise, this is simply a communication.
I'll just maybe comment to just say thank you so much. I think 2 organizations did reach out to say what they have received from the city. And I think one question came up from them. One of the organization is asking, okay, what they submitted as a proposal, is there a way for them to change the scope, for example? And if so, what would be the process to request that change? For
Sure.
example, yeah.
Someone else had reached out to me. What I will say is not every awardee was awarded the full amount they requested,
Yep.
which means that they will need to tailor their applications or the projects that they had proposed to fit within the funding if they do not have supplemental funding to augment the whatever program or proposal they put forth. So I have already emailed a few of those awardees to discuss that with them.
Okay.
And that would simply be working through me because I'll be managing this grant. And then I will be touching base with them quarterly as they do the quarterly reporting.
Okay, wonderful. And I mean, just appreciative of the amount of work that you have done to make this happen. And thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just have one question. Cara, you had said that you say that you will you'll keep in touch with these organizations that they will submit quarterly reports.
Correct.
So if you don't receive a quarterly report, you will follow up?
Yes, I will follow up. I have everyone's email. I've emailed them all directly with their award letters. Contracts will go out next week and then funds will be dispersed shortly thereafter. Because I work with a member of our clerk treasurer's office who's doing the quarterly reporting to the US Treasury on these funds, it'll be a flow of information. So I expect I'll be in contact with all of them regularly.
And then the other question is, there's no, or is there, I shouldn't say, ask it like that. Is there any requirement at all that, for example, if you get, $20,000 that you're spending $5,000 a quarter?
No, it really depends because each program was really varied. Some of them are going for staff costs and some of them are going to purchase an item, for example. So no, as soon as the funds have all been utilized, they don't need any more quarterly reporting. Most of them felt they would use the funds within a 12-month period.
And my last question is, I don't know, there's an awful lot of, there's a lot of organizations, I'm thinking that there are a number of city councilors who probably would be interested to know, what these organizations are doing with these funds, but not in a way that we're going to take, lots and lots of time to go through it one by one. I don't know how long these quarterly reports are going to be. I mean, they could be 1 page, they could be 5. If they're 5, that's a lot of pages. But if it turns out that they are fairly short, maybe in some way you can submit them for a consent agenda so that if there is an interest, people can see how the funds are being spent. And it's also a great way to know what organizations are doing. So I'll leave that to
Absolutely.
you,
Okay.
if we can do that. It's a lot of organizations, so I'll leave it to you.
It is, but we have, as part of the process with the committee, I do have a synopsis of each proposal. So I can probably put something together that would inform Board of Finance and Council what types of projects these funds are going towards.
All right. Well, there's 25 of them, so whatever you feel is best and not an overly burdensome.
Of course, sure.
Thanks very much. And
My pleasure.
like Councillor Zhang, thank you so much for your work on this.
Thanks.
Okay. If there's no further questions, I think it make sense to accept the communication with us on file, have a motion. So I think we would.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councilor McGee. And seconded by Councilor Zhang. Any further discussion? Before going to vote, let me also echo the thanks to Cara and the team that worked on this. This was a big undertaking and took sustained effort over a long period of time. Thank you for bringing it to conclusion and getting this money out into the community. With that, we'll have a vote on the motion to accept the communication. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Okay, now we move to 5.01, which is another American Rescue Plan item. This is a budget neutral adjustment related to a variety of the homeless crisis budget lines that was adopted by the council about a year ago. You guys want to come on up? It's exciting to have you. We've had, taken a lot of actions at this board and at the council on the various contracts and elements of the Elmwood shelter over the recent months. It's great to have you guys here with it actually operating. I'm not sure you really prepared a full update, but you want to say just a couple words about where we stand with the project and homelessness initiative.
I'll do it at a high level,
Yeah.
I think, and then Samantha can fill in the details for what you're being asked. Essentially, the shelter opened the first week of February, and we had a gradual moving in of people who were deemed through the outreach team from the various organizations that do outreach to folks experiencing homelessness. And we have 35 folks were selected for the 35 beds to be moved in, in stages, if you will. I think the take home was both heartening and disheartening at the same time, that we had not only 35 who were admitted, but another 40 or so who were not admitted at that time. Doesn't mean they won't have a chance down the road. If we're successful, folks will be transitioning from shelter to housing. That's the whole goal here. But the need is enormous. And there were some in the community who had doubts about whether this would be something that folks would choose to stay in. And I think we proved that, in fact, as an alternative to what folks are enduring outdoors, which is where folks are coming from, this is a far better, more dignified, humane way to get by. So far, so good. It's I'm fully staffed and operating, and there's been already some pretty, I'd say, positive outcomes from the project. I want to thank Samantha for the development of it and Sarah for pulling together the extensive services that I think will serve as a model that we'll look back on and say that approach was the right one.
I'll just add, actually, I'm going to jump in out of turn, but I'm really excited to share this. We had our first exit to permanent housing this week. So someone who was just in shelter a short period of time, who was chronically homeless and has moved into permanent supportive housing. So that's, we've already opened another bed available to someone else on the wait list.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Sarah. That's great. And yes, thank you to Sarah and Samantha for leading this enormous effort to get us to this point. And it's exciting that we're seeing that kind of positive outcome already. What would you like to say about this budget adjustment?
Let Samantha take that.
Yeah, I think, Mayor, as you mentioned, it's a budget neutral adjustment. A year ago, we had authorization from City Council for the $2.975 million to address the acute homelessness crisis. And we had kind of a rough plan of how that money was going to be spent. And this amendment is just recognizing that developing the shelter was more expensive than we had anticipated. And so this is to move some of the money from operations to cover those development costs. In that time, we also, Sarah and her team were successful in getting additional funds for operating the shelter from the state. And that's what allows us to make this move. I know Marcella and Sarah have also been successful in identifying other sources of funds to operate the Community Resource Center. I think the other thing I wanted to flag, when we talked about this project a year ago, we initially thought that the Community Resource Center and the shelter would be co-located as an efficient use of resources. That I think, as everyone knows, is not the case. It was, a request of the neighbors and honestly a requirement of Champlain Housing Trust for taking on the operations of the shelter that just felt like that would be too many people on the site. So I just wanted to flag that because it's a change from how this budget was initially approved. It was great to write this memo and realize that Elmwood opened exactly 1 year after that approval. So in addition to Elmwood opening, there were other goals identified in this plan. The first was to hire the position that Sarah is filling. I think everyone can recognize how much of a success that has been. And then continuing to operate the Community Resource Center and to make investments in the coordinated entry program. So we've made progress, as is mentioned in this memo, on all of the goals identified for this funding a year ago. It's just we're making a request to move some of the money around at this time.
I think it's worth noting, the Community Resource Center continues to be a very significant resource during this period. Actually visited the center last week and spoke to a number of folks there, and I think the reports are they're seeing as many as 150 people a day that are using the center at this point. So it's I think it's really important. The city's been able to continue to support, really be the driving force behind this. I mean, we're not operating it, but I don't think the center would be happening had the CETA team and Carr's team not pushed for this over the last year. So with that, floor is open for questions, discussion, motion.
Yeah, I'm happy to make the motion as indicated on board doc. And yeah.
Great, thank you, Councilor Jang, seconded by President Paul. Further discussion?
Yes, and I was just wondering about the wait list and also the profile of people who are utilizing the services right now. Are we talking about, parents in it? Are those beds occupied by a couple, or elderly? So basically the profile of people who are being housed right now, and also a little bit about the wait list. How many people are on the wait list right now?
Sarah knows more, but I'm going to add that the number of couples that sought this shelter was a bit surprising. It shouldn't perhaps be surprising because in traditional shelters, you can't be together as a couple. So perhaps that shouldn't have been a surprise, but we have seen more demand for people wanting to be together than we had envisioned.
And the site, before I'm going to let Sarah answer the question about profile. The site was designed with 5 shelters being able to accommodate 2 people upon their request. So that's the maximum right now at the site. But as Brian mentioned, there has been more demand than anticipated for those double units.
Yeah, and in terms of the sort of profile, so I was part of the referral team that reviewed the folks who were interested in moving there, and we did prioritize people who are unsheltered. So there have to date have been about 80 referrals that have been sent for the Elmwood shelter. Some of those folks are in motels or in other shelters right now and wanting to move. Some are in congregate shelter settings that would prefer to be in a semi-non-congregate setting, have their own shelter unit. But we did prioritize people who were unsheltered. Doesn't mean that somebody who is in shelter wouldn't be eligible, but that was our priority that was set by AHS regarding our funding. And the site does not accommodate children. So anyone over the age of 18 is allowed on site. I don't believe that we have any parents. They wouldn't be parenting at the time, parents. We did, I think, have one person who has shared custody of a child, or well, I guess visitation of a child who's not within her custody. But other than that, they're single individuals or couples, adult couples.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And no elderlies over 65 years old being housed there right now?
That's a good question. I'm not sure that I remember necessarily looking at age range, but just based off of my observations, having been at the shelter a few times, I know that there's at least one person who I would assume is over the age of 60. Generally, we don't see a high number of senior citizens who are unsheltered.
If I wanted to visit, well, I just reach out to you to say, hey, can you bring me? I want to meet the people and see how it's going.
Well, that's also a really good question and something that we would have to talk about. We're really bound by confidentiality and wanting to maintain confidentiality on the site. So typically we're not open to visitors, but we could certainly, we're hoping to set up some meal trains or have, volunteers from the community to come in and serve a meal to folks. And if that's something that you're interested in, we can certainly follow up around that. Ali, I'd like to talk to you about that more.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
President Paul, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that I understood your answer to Councillor Zhang's question. You had mentioned the number 80, Sarah. Did you mean 80 on the wait list in addition to the people that are now currently housed there? So that wasn't the total number that came to you, that's the number over and above what you could house. Is that right?
Well, that is true. So we received 80 referrals total. That number is likely higher at this point. But something I did want to mention is that related to the extreme cold weather shelter, I checked in everyone who came to that shelter at the Miller Center, and then cross-checked that to the best of my memory with the people who were on the referral list or moving into, or who had been accepted into Elmwood or who were waiting on that referral list. And I think there was one or two couples and 2 or 3 individuals who were either moving into Elmwood or who were on that referral list, which said to me that there's potentially a large number of people who are unsheltered or at minimum housing insecure, who have not who are not interested in moving to Elmwood, disconnected from the system, either by choice or barrier. So we saw almost 60 people at the extreme cold weather shelter, just for comparison's sake.
Okay, all right. Thanks so much. Thank you for all of this.
Good. Echo, thanks for you all, the work that you've done to get us to this point of having folks move into the shelter community and the work in standing up the extreme cold weather shelter. I know that was on the consent agenda, but just wanted to say thank you. I know that was a challenging 4 days, and really deeply appreciate the work that went into that. So thank you.
Without the mayor's leadership and the council's support, none of this would have happened. Thank you.
So, well, thank you to the board for this discussion. I do think we need a recommendation for the full council on this. I don't think we've gotten a motion on this yet.
Yeah, you do.
Do we have a motion? Okay, sorry. We're ready for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Are any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Great. Thank you, Brian, Samantha, Sarah. More to come soon. This brings us to 5 we're still on that shelter, right? 5.02, authorization to update contracts. To update contracts for the Elmwood Emergency Shelter community. You want to say a little bit more?
Sure. I think this is also a budget neutral amendment, again, as we were in a flurry of working to get the shelter open as quickly as possible. We moved some of the scope from KBS Builders to our local contractor on site, second gen, which requires increasing the guaranteed or the maximum limiting amount of their contract. So that's what this request is.
Great. Is the board clear on this? Are we ready for a motion? Councilor McGee.
I'd be happy to make the motion as recommended on board docs.
Second.
Great. Thank you for working flexibly to make this happen. I think it's indication that, was not easy to get the final details in place. So thank you, Samantha. If there's no further discussion, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Great.
Thank you.
Thanks again. All right, 5.03, Queen City Park Road Sidepath, Vtrans Grant Cooperative Agreement. This is a DPW item. Welcome, City Engineer Norm Baldwin. Norm, you want to kick this off?
Yep, so we have tonight a request that has 3 different elements to the request. They're in the packet. Effectively is authorization for the director to execute the proper agreement for 1.03 million, along with City Council recommending accepting the recommendation of the Capital Committee to advance the funding for the project. In addition, to this request, council authorize use of at the ready consultant to support the product as well. So we have tonight Laura Wheelock and Philip Peterson, who are both managing the project, and maybe they can speak more directly to some of the questions I think Sharon had in terms of location. And I believe Laura can probably pull up a map that shows and indicates where the limits are. So I'll hand it over to Laura.
I'll
Yeah,
let Philip speak as the project manager.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for letting me speak. Philip Peterson with DPW. Sharon, not counselor, as Butcher indicated, she was looking for clarification where the path will be within the segment of Queen City Park Road. So I can kind of answer this question. I can highlight that this is only one segment of 5 within the scoping study completed by the CCRPC. And that document is available on their website. As Laura had told me earlier, this segment is specifically between Central and Austin and mimics what is labeled as segment B within that study. I think it's important to clarify that we've been in contact with South Burlington staff, and they have some intents to apply for some of their own segments to go out towards Route 7 this summer. And their hope is to pursue construction for their parts. So hopefully that kind of clarifies that question.
I think the one piece just to add is that right now the preferred alignment as presented and accepted in the final study shows the path on the east side of the road, which is on along Burton's property. Staff has been working with Burton as they submit their redevelopment plans to ensure that there is space to collaborate with their work product as well.
So I would just add one more piece, and that is right now we have an advisory lane within that space, and there's a considerable amount of commercial traffic. And so we're trying to separate the pedestrian and bike activities from the vehicle traffic that's there. Originally thought that it was a lower volume, less exposure and challenge. And obviously, as we know more about existing condition and want to advance improving that system, this is where this funding will really be kind of a huge improvement to the condition on that road. There's been a lot of conversation from the adjacent neighborhood, South Burlington and Central Ave. So we think this will address a lot of people's concerns, at least on our segment of the roadway. The long-term goal is to really connect the Greenway, Burlington's Greenway, with South Burlington's bike network that connect into Route 7.
Sorry.
So that's it.
Great. Floor is open for questions or action. Councilor Dang.
Yep, I would like to make the motion as indicated on board doc. It seems it's three different elements, making them all together.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilor Jang. We have a second for that motion. Second by President Paul. Further discussion. Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Great, thank you.
Great. Thank you
So
all.
much.
Authorization to execute a lease amendment number 2 to the General Service Administration's lease at the airport. Let's see. Major delegation from the airport team here. Welcome. You want to kick us off, Nick?
Absolutely. So this is a relatively simple amendment to an existing lease, specifically with the General Services Administration, who then deals directly with the Transportation Security Administration. So this is an amendment to their existing lease, going from 700 square feet on the first floor up to the second floor. If you're familiar with the terminal, this is the old administration offices up on the second floor level. And they'll move there at an additional cost and additional square foot. Again, this is an amendment to the GSA lease. That's really it.
Great. Questions for the airport? Go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Is this office space newly created with the renovation that was done at the airport, or the space they're moving into?
It is not. So this is previously existing office space. We are renovating it slightly. A couple months ago, we came to you with a small, we came with a small amendment to reconstruct it, rehab, design it, and then rehabilitate it. Existing space, not newly constructed.
Okay.
Go ahead, President Paul.
Thanks. I'll make the motion as recommended on board docs.
Great. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Hightower. Discussion of the motion. Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. This brings us to 5.05. Another airport item.
Point of information, Mr. Mayor. I don't know. It may be my internet. I was out, but I wanted to ask one question, and I think it's more for you.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. Is it better? Okay. And was just wondering, the checklist about the airport. I was just wondering, what will it take to now make sure that any items from the airport will also go to TUC before it comes to Board of Finance or before it goes to the Full Council? To add just an element of just building relationship between the airport and a city committee. What will it take to do that?
So, Councilor Jang, it's an interesting question. I mean, we do have this commission that we defer to, that all basically any item that comes here. So maybe you could speak to Nick. I mean, I would say the route that historically most items have taken would be through the commission. Very rarely do we act on anything that hasn't been reviewed and endorsed by the commission. And then if it's a financial item, to the Board of Finance. I mean, if it was more of a policy item, I think we have had things that go to TUC, but that's I'm not sure how often that happens. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, I would say it is unusual to go to TUC, but every item that comes before this board and or the full city council always goes in front of the now 7-member airport commission. 5 members of the city of Burlington, 1 from Winooski and 1 from the city of South Burlington. We hold monthly meetings that are much more thorough, both from a financial presentation and an engineering presentation, a director's report, as well as every action item prior to it coming to this particular board. We've gone to Tuke a few times, specifically with utility or energy type conversations.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say,
like
like, when we've had climate related items, I can think of a couple, at least one or two items have gone to Duke in the last 6 months, right?
That's
for
correct. And we're scheduled for the March meeting in Tuke as well.
And how, can you speak to, did we do that proactively, or did the council send it to Duke somehow, or we just realized that that was sort of going kind of beyond financial issues and normal operations, so it makes sense to bring them in?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the two committee invited the airport, specifically Councilor, all of the two committee in general. I think there's a couple of citizens too that were very interested in the sustainability report specifically.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons there was a presentation at the two.
So, Councilor Jang, I hope that discussion was a little, I mean, I think that's how we have done it. I think it's served us pretty well, and I haven't heard, maybe your question is indication of some concern about that process. I have not been aware there's been any sense that there hasn't been, that this isn't working this way. I think it would certainly be a significant administrative addition to say everything from the airport would go through Tuke. I think I'd be kind of concerned about that, but I think this practice of involving Tuke in climate related issues makes sense to me. And maybe there's some other kind of, transportation policy related items. We certainly wouldn't. You're saying that taxi issues, I mean, we're supposed to have this whole other board, right, for taxi issues, but when that's been not working well, and to agree that gets into broader kind of policy issues. So I think that's sort of the division. Financial issues come here, climate, transportation policy issues, we try to identify them and loop Tuke in as well. So does that seem like a workable system, or are you suggesting a change, Councilor Dang?
Yeah, I mean, it is just that since the general aviation issue came up like from last year or the past 2 years, it was very clear that there has been a disconnect between the airport and the city council. It was very obvious, and everybody recognized it. And to the director's point, I think they go to Tuke only when they are invited to speak about something. But my question is, how do we just build a better relationship, knowing that DPW has a committee they go to, Parks and Rec has a committee they go to, even though they have commissions too, but there is a disconnect between committees and the airport, and how do we facilitate that? And from my perspective, adding a checklist, did they go to Tuke to at least do a presentation without being invited? I think to bring some level of questions and understanding, I think it will be very beneficial, because this board is more about just a finance aspect of the airport, but not about the day-to-day operation. And how do we build that relationship was just my question. And to me, the checklist, adding it would solve that issue. Yeah, but
Okay, Councilor Jang. I think I understand the spirit of your suggestion. I think we can have it on the things that's considered as we're trying to make sure we have the right route, make sure we're identifying the two connection when appropriate. Is there further? I've lost track of where we are. We have with this item, we have a motion and a second, or we have not gotten that. Yeah, we don't, we're still waiting for a motion for 5.0. We're on 5.05. 5.05.
Yeah, we are now on 5.05. I'm sorry. My apologies.
Yeah, I guess it was a little confusing. Councilor Jang kind of made a point of information as I think we had completed 5.04. We had the vote on it. So we've addressed that point of information. Hopefully sufficiently. 5.05 is now on the floor. How would the board like to proceed?
I'll make that.
So maybe we haven't even really teed it up yet. So sorry. Now we can go ahead. Yeah, why don't you tee this one up? It's a substantial financial.
This is a substantial change, it's a substantial amendment to an existing, well, it's actually an additional grant, but it adds to an existing grant. Last August, we came to the board and the city council and the airport commission and presented a brand new grant that Larry and Marie have extensively worked on to rehabilitate one of our taxiways, which is directly adjacent our terminal building. It's a primary taxiway for the airport. We weren't 100% sure, and the FAA kind of confirmed with the amount of funds that they granted us that we would get the entire grant that particular round, which we didn't, which is now why we're here today to add to that particular project and receive a second grant, which extends this particular taxiway into another taxiway, into what's called Alpha and Charlie. This is not just a new grant. This is also two amendments to existing contracts, one with ST Ireland and one with McFarland Johnson, our engineering consultant firm. There you go.
The only thing I would add is when we first came here, we had to remove the initial engineering for this portion of the project. We bid it with it. This allows us to recoup those monies we spent on engineering for this portion because they weren't eligible at the time because that alternate got removed. So this also allows us to recoup those engineering fees.
Great. Okay, now the questions on the floor, how the board like to proceed. Questions, ready for action? President Paul.
Yeah, so I'll make the motion as indicated on board docs. Just have one more question or just to reaffirm that, if I may, that, or actually, if you want to get a second and then I'll ask the question. Whatever.
Okay, sure. Is there a second for a motion? Second by Councilor McGee. Go ahead, President Paul.
Great, thank you. So I just wanted to make sure that none of the, although there are grants, none of the grants came with any sort of, and there are some passenger, what are those called?
Facility charge.
Yes, those. There are no funds that are coming out of the airport budget to fund this. Is that correct?
So each one of these grants, you're correct, has a 10% local match. Those local matches are then applied in a very complex passenger facility charge program. We have to apply not just to receive them from the airlines, but also to expend them on certain projects. We just amended one about 6 to 12 months ago, and we're preparing to amend further PFC charges to capture all of these local fees, local charges, not just this grant, but all of our grants that we receive, or most of our grants that we receive.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councilor Jang. Go ahead, Councilor Jang.
No, it seemed that we have a motion. I wanted to second it. Sorry.
Okay, great. We do actually, I know it's hard with the camera sometimes. We have it, it's been properly motioned and seconded by Councilor McGee. So we're ready for further discussion or action. Seeing no more questions, I'm going to go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thank you all. All right, I believe that leaves us with just one final item, which is the Board of Finance approval only, because it's an item of less than $100,000. And I think it's an item that our councilors are going to be happy to see. We have been talking about this for quite some time and pursuing an RFP for this in recent months. And I see that Charles Dillard is here to speak to us. Charles, do you want to kick this off?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thanks, Mayor. Yes, this is a request to authorize execution of the contract for the amount stated with Nelson Nygaard, a consultant out of Boston, actually a national firm, to lead this study, which will be I would say an overhaul and an update of the city's TDM policies and regulations. Nelson Nygaard is a national leader in TDM work. We are really happy that they ended up responding to the RFP. This study, as you said, Mayor, really was catalyzed by a council resolution in 2021 that calls for the study that will involve a review of existing policies and regulations, a review of best practices from around the country and the globe, in fact, and then a public engagement effort, and finally, an implementation plan to get a new TDM program in Burlington. Happy to take any other specific questions if you have them.
Thank you for that, Charles. President Paul.
Thanks. I have a question. I didn't see it on the contract memo, and perhaps I missed it, about what the what the project timeline is.
Yeah, that wasn't included in the memo. So the project is slated to be just under a year at this point. We would be targeting December completion, I think. We were hoping to have it done, by November. We've been pushed back a few weeks though, so definitely by the end of the year.
All right. So you think that the report that we would get would come to, could come to the city council by December of 2023?
Yeah, I think so. That's our goal.
Okay. All right. I'm happy to make, if someone else wants to, please go ahead. If not, I'm happy to make the motion as recommended on board docs.
I'll accept that as a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Councilor Jang. Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, let me just say thank you, Charles, for advancing this. I think this is going to be a very helpful policy document when it's done, and look forward to that. And I will say we used for people who haven't been around quite as long as I have at this point. Nelson Nygaard effectively they advised the city on some of our early parking changes back around 2013, 2014. So I welcome them being involved again. I think that they will. They've been an effective consultant for us in the past. Councilor Hightower.
Yeah, sorry, I realized that I did have a question on this, which was in the list of the city's priorities on this, and maybe, yeah. I thought it didn't have reduction of vehicle miles traveled or carbon emissions, which I thought maybe before we do the contract, we should add those two things. It should be obvious, but I think we have a long list of things and those two things aren't on there. So, or at least it wasn't in the RFP.
Indeed. So the reduction of VMT, vehicle miles traveled, is really one of the underlying concepts here, and oversight and that not being included. That's definitely one of the primary objectives here. Reducing emissions as well. That is, we did include that in the RFP, the statement that the council has declared a climate emergency, and definitely requested responses from consultants and asked questions about their approach to reducing emissions. And again, do you think the consultant we have selected has demonstrated some good work on both of those fronts? And so we'll definitely make sure that those are covered in great detail in the work and ultimately implemented in the plan.
Great, thank you. I was just remembered I glanced over the scope of work and was like, oh, that's not on the list. Thanks, Charles.
Yep.
Councilor Jang.
Yep, thank you. Can you please speak a little bit about the cost? Because it seemed the scope of work is very significantly big, right? And was wondering if the other RFP, were they more expensive, less expensive, a little bit?
Yeah, so as the memo states, initially the department had budgeted $75,000 for this. Nelson Nygaard did propose an optional task of about $19,000 that entails studying downtown parking and curb management policies and strategies. Some of that work has been done and is being done in support of the Great Streets Main Street project. And so we proposed back to them that Nelson Nygaard could augment that work that's being done to study the sort of greater downtown area and then some of the primary gateway corridors into and out of the city. In terms of comparison with the other submittals that they received, the base fee was similar, but I think Nelson Nygaard, this consultant, made a very strong case for why this optional task and better understanding parking and curb management strategies would be essential to making the TDM plan ultimately successful. And the only other thing I will say is that the department does have money, as the memo states, to cover that added cost.
You know, I really do appreciate the scope around equitable community engagement, because it goes beyond just the policy, the studies, but how do we also engage the constituents? I think it is key. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. I believe we've got a motion on the table ready for action. There's no further discussion. We will go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you again, Charles. And
Thank you all.
that, I am pretty sure we have completed the agenda, and therefore, if there's no objection, we will adjourn the Board of Finance at 6:26 p.m. And we'll see everyone, I guess, in a couple weeks, right?
Yes.
No meeting next week. No, we have a free Monday.
Public information meeting on Wednesday, March 1.
Public information meeting on Wednesday, but no Board of Finance or City Council meeting next Monday on the eve of town meeting day.
Not exactly a free
13th.
Monday.
We're back for City Council the 13th and Board of Finance the 20th.
Have a good evening.
With that, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Okay.
Check in tomorrow.
Yeah.